Hello, this is our story. I'm Angela,
I'm Jade.
and today we have two of my favorite people in the entire world with us today on our special edition on sisters and my very special bond with my sisters. This is Jade, my older sister, and this is Joanne, my younger sister. And honestly, I was pretty surprised that we were going to do this because I didn't know we were doing this until you told me a week ago.
Surprise.
Surprise! I want to do something on your sisters, but I'm totally down with it because I am very proud and very grateful for the sisters that I have grown up with, and I think it will be really great to tell our story of how we grew up together, how we stayed together, and how we continue to do great and beautiful things together. And I do believe it's a unique story. I know that it's not usual to have as strong as a bond as I have with my sisters. And so I definitely want to share that with the rest of the world. So before we waste any more time, because I do that enough to these two,
We never waste time with us.
oh, I love that. We're just gonna jump into it, and I just want to get a sense of, for each person, what their early childhood memories were in relation to becoming a sister. The things that, we'll cut this part out, don't worry. First, I just want to talk about our early childhood memories of growing up together and what sisterhood became to them, like how it affected their lives and what roles they naturally fell into as we grew up together. So I'll start with Jade because she has the most experience. She has the most sisterly experience.
The oldest.
Yeah. So what is your early impression of being a sister and what that meant to you? Or how that affected your life growing up?
In my personal experience, in my childhood, I don't feel like I was conscious of the fact I was a sister. When I say I wasn't conscious, meaning I wasn't given a choice. It's not like your parents sit you down and says, "Would you like to be a sister?" It just kind of happens, right? And so it's for me, it was more of a happening. And I flowed with it. You're just told one day, here's your sibling, you're going to be a sister. There's nothing to think about it. It's the new reality right in front of you. So you kind of flow with it. And for me and you, there was some age difference, right? And I was still a little too young to...
We're 6 years apart.
Yeah. To really fully be present with you.
Yeah, you're still living your life as a kid.
Yeah, so
doing your own thing.
I was just like, I was a kid myself, trying to survive. I was a kid myself trying to survive, and I wasn't conscious of being a sister to you.
I think to me, you weren't conscious of it.
No, I wasn't a sister.
I believe you're much more conscious of it, and if anything, became more than a sister when it came to JoJo.
Yeah, so it was really weird. So for you, I was not conscious of being a sister to you.
True that.
You're just like the weird little girl that lived in the house with me.
You loved me.
You're like...
but you played with me. Real quick, I'll just say from my experience, like growing up, just a happening. But at the same, like for me, since I'm a younger sister, I have a different perspective. I see this older person who seems to know more and is smarter and is able to do more things. And I'm like, I just want to do what this person does.
That's so funny because from my perspective, you didn't do anything I did.
I know, but like it was my own choice. Like at the same time, I followed you a lot though.
Yeah.
So I did. I liked being around Jade. I liked watching her. Even if I didn't do it, I always wanted to know what she knew.
Yeah.
Even it was like, because she knows more, you get the sense that this person will at least show you what's available, and you choose your own thing, which apparently I did because I was a very weird child. But I felt very safe, and she was totally cool about it, even at a very young age. You know how a lot of siblings, they're like, "Oh, get away," but Jade was never like that. She always took me along with her. And that lasted even till now. Like even as a teenager, you would definitely think she wouldn't want me around, but she would even take me to like friends' house parties, which you would never see. Jade was very different as a sister, and I'm sure her friends thought it was weird too, but she didn't care. She just like, this is my sister, and she's not causing trouble. Yeah, she cared. I don't even know. Were you even conscious of that?
No.
But you just did it.
I just did it.
She
It wasn't something I was consciously doing.
She didn't consciously do it. But for me, I was like, this is the coolest thing. I don't know any other kid that does the same stuff that I got to do, because my older sister was like, no, it's cool. But so that was a beautiful tangent. But like I guess that question is really more geared towards Joanne here.
Yeah. So for Angela, it was I was never conscious of the fact that I was a sister. It just happened. It's just what is. And then for Joanne, my fondest memory was then my mom just brought her home. She was born premature, so she was born about 7 months and change. So it was very unexpected.
And there's an 11-year difference between you two.
Yeah. So now I'm older and I have more consciousness versus 6 years old, right? 6 years old, you're such a kid. You're not even operating on that level. But 11, 12 years old, your brain is operating differently. So I was much more conscious of, okay, I have a new sibling here now. And all I remember was thinking to myself, she is so small.
And red.
She was so small and fragile. And I remember
tiny.
one of my earliest memories was when she came home from the hospital, I ran to go grab a doll and put it up next to her just to see how small she was. She wasn't that much bigger than the doll. And at that time, I was thinking, like, cool, you're like a doll. You're like a doll. You're like the same size as the doll. You're like a living doll that cries and poops.
And then we didn't grow up with toys, so having you was like the biggest thing.
Yeah, you were like the best primo toy. Yeah, and I was always starving for dolls and toys like that. But so it was like, you're like the best toy ever. Like that came home. Yeah.
The best toy ever.
Yeah. But in the interest of not getting too depressing here, but
we like feelings though, so don't shy away. We like pain.
We grew up in a very neglectful and abusive home, and
from both parents.
Yeah, from both parents. In a short period of time, our mother started to become extremely emotionally and physically neglectful towards Joanne, to the point where Joanne would just cry and cry and cry and cry, and our mom just was so checked out, she wouldn't even pick her up, like just checked out.
It's like she was unable to
care.
Yeah, she was just numb and just couldn't function.
Yeah, couldn't function. She was probably having postpartum depression.
I believe so.
Knowing what we know now, she was experiencing postpartum depression, and during her pregnancy with Joanne, their father left too. So our house is fatherless, and she's born premature. Now she's hugging onto the fourth kid, right? Not knowing how to survive. So she had severe postpartum depression. So she checked out, and I just remember playing and hearing Joanne cry and cry and cry and cry, and I would look to my mom, and she just checked out, and something in me just awoken that day, and I went to go pick Joanne up, and I held her, and Joanne stopped crying. Like, she just wanted to be held. She just wanted attention. That moment changed me and my consciousness fully. So my consciousness completely shifted, I would say, out of being a sister to a mom. Like, I just took over emotionally and physically as a mom, because I didn't want to hear her cry like that anymore. And so I would sleep in the room with our mother next to Joanne. I would wake up in the middle of the night change her diaper, feed her, burp her, put her to sleep, all that throughout the night so my mom could sleep. And then I would go to school, fall asleep in class, get pulled by the principal, get a warning, I was failing, and they put me in like special needs class. They thought I was sleep deprived. I couldn't function in school. I was not sleeping through the night. And then when I would get home from school, the first thing I would do is drop my backpack, run to the crib and pick up Joanne. That'd be the first thing I did. And I would hold Joanne, take care of Joanne, wash her butt, change her diaper, feed her, play with her. That was it. That was my childhood after 11 years old. It was so much to the point where Joanne actually, when she was old enough to start talking, she actually grew up calling me mom. So she called me mom, not our mom. So when we go out to the street, she would pull on me and say, mommy, mommy, mommy. And that went on for a while until our mom was starting to kind of come out of her depression phase. And then I think Joanne was probably close to 3 when I had to sit Joanne down and tell her, you can't call me mommy. Like, I'm not your mommy, that's your mommy. And I just remember Joanne's just totally confused. But what I was saying, but that was our relationship. I don't think there's one like it.
Do you have any recollection of this? She's getting all teary.
No.
Do you have any recollection of that? Because you were very young at that point.
I do remember calling Jade mom a lot.
Oh, so you do remember that? Wow. Do you remember the confusion that you may have felt from just shifting from calling her mom?
I vaguely, like, I remember like calling Jade like mom, and then having to correct myself, like, sorry, Jade, like.
Yeah.
So how was growing up with us?
I mean, there's quite a big age difference, so I just felt like you guys were the adults and you knew everything, and I was kind of like you, where I just follow you guys around and just wanting to know what you know, learning what you learn, just emulating you guys.
Yeah. So by the time you came around, like, definitely for me, it was more like another playmate. Because I'm actually quite, pretty close to middle of the age of both of you. Jade's 6 years older, Joanne's about almost 5, so 4.5 years younger than I am. And so I think, and in my really young years, JoJo's just seemed like another playmate and someone else to like. I really was excited to just show you things, right? And also just because I was really good at playing by myself, because I think that's the only way we could entertain ourselves at home. Like, it was just another person to just add something else to the mix was great to me. Yeah. Because we didn't have a lot.
And Joanne was fun to watch.
Yeah, Joanne was fun.
She was fun to watch.
She was actually a really big character too.
Yeah.
Like, JoJo liked to
perform.
She was actually kind of like a natural. I saw very early on a very creative spark in her, which has manifested into adulthood. But like, she would sing, she would dance, she would put on makeup, she would like try on different things. Yeah.
I remember going through your makeup and your clothes as a kid, just like putting on your lipstick all over my face, or I would use it to draw on the walls.
Yeah, it was a very different time. Like the circumstances of the family dynamic, but also just the fact that we didn't have a lot at home. Like, it was just another person to share time with, right? So for me, that's what I remember. And I guess into our adulthood, like, I'm still, those patterns of, for me and Jade, me just wanting to be like, all right, Jade, what are you doing now? That still continues to this day. I still take on I guess going back to the original question of what role, I don't like to necessarily put labels, but I think I naturally fall into a habit of just like looking at Jade and being like, so what's our next adventure? Because Jade to me is the one that always has like
pioneer,
the big crazy ideas, the pioneer, the one that goes first. And I think that's just in our birth order. That's just the way I feel it was meant to be. So I just go like, so where are we going next? And then I'm like an enabler. So I'll hear it, I'll be like, that's crazy. When are we gonna do it? That's insane.
Total enabler.
I'm a total enabler, and I've talked about this with Jade many times, how I think I'm a spiritual enabler. And that's been my main dynamic with Jade. Growing up now, like I feel towards JoJo, I feel like JoJo and I are like two students of life together. Whereas I look towards Jade to for the direction of where our next adventure goes. Like JoJo and I feel like we get dropped in the middle of things, and we're like, all right, let's figure this out. And then we're kind of like figuring things out together and trying to make a good time out of it, like a game out of it, as much as possible. And I feel like, if anything, I have a natural feeling of protection towards Joanne. It's not to like the degree where Jade was, because Jade had like a very maternal feeling, but like I'm a big cheerleader for JoJo. I'm like, come on, we can figure this out. I have no idea what we're gonna do, but we can figure this out, and I believe in you. And I take on a role of really, I think, encouraging you and just reminding you of how awesome you are.
I feel it all the time. Thank you. I mean, for me, at this age, because you two took care of me so much growing up, that a lot of what I do is driven by this desire to want to take care of you guys when I'm older. I know you don't need it.
I'm not expecting it, but I won't reject it when I'm old and tired. I keep telling JoJo all the time, I'm like, JoJo, can you make a lot of money and just take care of me?
I've taken that to heart.
No pressure though. No pressure.
I want you to be my housewife.
All right, cool. I'll cook. I'll clean.
I love your garlic noodles.
Oh, thank you.
By no means should anyone out there take this as the norm.
Yeah.
We are the exception, certainly, not the rule. But I would say for us, we feel like we are one divine spirit split into three bodies. That's how we feel. Like we feel like one seed came down and like split into three physical bodies, and it's just total oneness. It's just trust. It's just
yeah. And where do you think that comes from? So that was kind of the next question. We kind of gave like a general background. Do you think is it a combination or specifically because of personality, just like the circumstances of how we grew up? Like, where do you think that bond for us comes from? That trust, that innate trust, because it's very instinctive, right?
Well, I mean, you watch enough cinema, right? You watch enough television shows or movies. When people are in a traumatic experience together, right? It either turns them against each other or unifies them.
This is true. Yeah.
That's basically the two outcomes. So when you see families that are extremely broken, they have a toxic culture. But there are some families that are extremely oneness that came from a toxic culture.
Yeah. It goes one way or the other.
It goes one or the other. And so when you're put into a very traumatized situation, you either fend for yourself or you fight together.
You band together.
You band together. And I think
like in a disaster movie.
Like in a disaster movie, right?
You need to survive.
Yeah, but not always, right?
Yeah.
So even if you look at Walking Dead, like you're either betraying each other or you become a tribe.
That's true.
Right? To fight the odds. And I think we just spiritually chose the path to band together in our suffering, because there was so much suffering in our house. We didn't have
abandonment.
We didn't have parents to look to.
Yeah.
So if we didn't band together, we had nothing.
Yeah, and
we had nothing. If the suffering would be unbearable if we didn't have each other, if we didn't band together, because there was just too much suffering. I think that I think the illusion that causes a lot of suffering is that when people are raised in a traumatic experience together, you think that the pain is uniquely your own and that you're the only one that suffers. But if you have, like, for example, if you have a sibling, right, and your parents doted on this one sibling, and you were always blamed for everything, you would come to the assumption that you and your sibling have nothing in common, right? Because you got doted on. But that's an assumption that's wrong, and that creates distance and a rift between siblings and misunderstanding. Because you're assuming that the fact that they got doted on, that they're not suffering. And I think that's the illusion that siblings around the world need to look within and try to break, because that sibling, I assure you, is not happy, because they are feeling your resentment, right? So that younger brother is doted on, they feel the older brother's resentment. They feel that distance, right? And so it's not like the younger brother is trying to go against, but it's almost like you gave the sibling no choice. You push them away because you are assuming they're not suffering, right? But internally, kids don't like to see other kids suffer. So when a younger sibling sees the parents abusing or taking anger out unfairly on an older sibling, it's not that the younger sibling is happy about it. It's that the older sibling, not understanding fully and misunderstanding, pushes the sibling away, and through a self-defense mechanism, then creates the separation. And I hope that people out there hear this and mend that, because there's nothing siblings truly want in their heart more than to be oneness with their siblings. And then if you come from an unfortunate story where your parents then also pinned siblings against each other, which is actually very common. It's very, very common. You know, there are so many parents out there from our previous generation that have so much trauma. They come from a survival mentality. They didn't have the tools. They were not emotionally or spiritually awoken. And so they felt it was appropriate, in order to encourage improvement, they thought you had to encourage competition, because that's what they know. That's their reality, because they themselves are competing against one another. And when they bring that mindset into their home, and they think that they think motivation is driven by competition, that's extremely toxic in the home. But they don't know that, right? They don't know any other reality. So when they drive their children to compete against one another, that's not no fault of the sibling, but of the parents who just simply didn't know better. And so you suffer.
They think they're helping.
They think they're helping, yeah. They think they're motivating. But really all that does is create so much extreme suffering among siblings. So it's important that parents don't do these things and don't repeat these mistakes, and keep things fair. Keep things fair among siblings. Like, if you're gonna make the older child apologize, the younger one should apologize. Don't compare them. You know, love them for their individual.
Be very careful about comparison.
Yeah, don't pit them against each other. Say, look, your sister did this. Why can't you do this? And when you do that, you are creating this anger and hostility among siblings. But unfortunately, if there's any brokenness among siblings, almost always that comes from the dysfunction created by the parents. And if you as siblings can recognize that within you, seek to mend those relationships with your siblings. Know that you all suffered. Even the kid that was doted on suffered. They suffered the loss of you as a sibling. They suffered the loss of you as a play friend, as a best friend, as a guide. They're suffering too. They're isolated too. And not only that, but they're dumped in an immense amount of pressure, right? That no one wants. And so when we can recognize that, we can start mending our sibling relationship. And so that's we just chose to band together. We would not be pitted against. And I found myself the will to rise above it. But again, we are the exception, not the rule. The rule out there is heal. If you don't like your sister, I'm sure or brother, if you look deep within yourself, you can trace it back to some form of discipline that your parents did that created this atmosphere and misunderstanding. And if you can clear that, and if you can find a way to apologize and to accept apology and open up that communication with your siblings, so much can be healed. No more time should be wasted.
Yeah. I'm really glad that we didn't fall into that kind of trap of feeling resentment toward each other.
Although they tried.
They tried, because what I'm saying is that, and
Jade
is talking from a type of experience in that they tried to pit us against each other. And we also have a brother in the mix too, who they would also try to
separate, divide and conquer.
Yeah, like compare.
By giving labels, you're the good one, you're the bad one. And that's a divide and conquer. That's really messed up.
What is the label that you got from the parents?
Nothing good. Yeah.
I know our brother Michael was like the filial one, like he's the one who takes care of the family.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and you know, and these mental identities within the family structure were created a long time ago by parents.
Yeah.
And before you blame your parents, you better be sure you're not doing the same thing within your own family and your own kids, because you may be repeating the cycle unconsciously. Unconsciously, you're repeating the cycle, don't even know it. And so to forgive your parents is to forgive yourself for doing the same, right? It's always a new day. You can change it now, but those sibling rivalries comes from this deep-seated, somewhere in your childhood, you felt pitted against your sibling. Somewhere through some design, either through your sibling, through yourself, through your illusion, or through your parents, that happened, and then you believed the thought, and then you went on to create your whole childhood around that thought. So that's the unfortunate thing.
Did you ever felt any negative effects from comparisons?
Oh, for sure. Sure, Mom would say a lot of different things to me.
Yeah.
Like, you're not, you know, if we're going to go into detail, you're not as pretty as this sister, you're not as smart as this sister, you're not as athletic as your brother. Like, there's, I was
Thinking that would motivate you?
Yeah. And that
Thinking like, I'm trying to point out something where you can improve, but if anything, it has the effect of diminishing your self-esteem.
diminishing you and separating you from your siblings.
Separating you from your siblings, and also not appreciating you for your specific talents, right? Because not everyone's made the same.
Yeah, Mom did not appreciate my artistic talents.
No.
I do though.
Thank you.
I do.
You know, we have a sister-in-law who doesn't get along with her sister, right? And when we talked about it, she went to a deep childhood memory where she was at the toy store and she wanted to pick out this one toy, and her mom was like, how could you be so selfish? Why would you pick out a toy that your little sister can also play with, right? But her little sister was so little, so she'd have to pick out like a baby toy.
Was that to like save money?
Huh? It could have been to save money. It could have been to save money, but the impression, so the message she got was, I don't matter, right? And so she purposely got this toy that she really didn't want. She had to pretend like she wanted it so that her little sister at the end of the day can have it. So she never actually got to pick anything for herself. And all that did was create this unconscious resentment against her sister, right? And all children, they have the capacity to feel feelings. They can feel it. They can't say it, right? But every child knows when someone doesn't like them, right? Every child knows. And you remember when you recall when you were a little kid, when you went to someone's house, you knew if that adult liked you or not. You knew. You couldn't say it, but you know, right?
Oh, I knew.
You know.
And you would feel uncomfortable.
You can feel it. You can't say it, you can't process it, but you feel it, right? Kids talk through communication. So when an older sibling is annoyed and resentful and just hates the fact that you exist because of you, I have to suffer, you feel it, right? And then so it makes you act out in a certain way that then perpetuates that thought, like a vicious cycle. And so it's because of that she grew up believing the thought, my little sister's a spoiled brat.
Because she gets everything.
Because she gets everything she wants. It's so unfair. Because the little sister is not the one that made these decisions.
It was the parent.
The mom did.
It was the paradigm that the mom set
that
up.
she created. But then the sisters suffer it. They're still suffering it. They're just barely trying to mend it now. That's the thing that, if there's any takeaway from today's discussion,
it seems pretty clear that for sisters, any sibling harmony, it starts with the parent.
Yeah.
It starts with the culture, the environment, the way of thinking that the parent instills into the child through action, through how you make the child feel when you ask them to do anything? Like, or do they feel like they have to give up something because of another person?
I have to compete for affection now. I have to compete for attention now. You know, and the kid didn't create this paradigm. The parents did, and so you know, no one knows better. A really great example of this is if you've seen The Good Place. If you've seen The Good Place, you know, Tahani and her sister. I mean, the sibling rivalry was to the point it's the reason she went to hell. Like the reason she ended up in the bad place was because of her relationship with her sister. That after so much of these trials and going through demons and going to the bad place, she realized that it was her parents.
Yes. For those who haven't watched The Good Place, so basically this one character goes to hell because she becomes overly jealous and competitive with the sister. You see clips of her early childhood life where the parents would always praise one sister and always look down on her, and it created this obsession with being like having status,
beating her sister,
being noticed, and it creates a really deep well of a lack of self-worth inside of her that she doesn't know that she's constantly name dropping just to derive some a sense of self-value from it.
Yeah, she lives superficially,
and always trying to one-up other people.
Yeah, yep. And when people are always trying to one-up, they got that somewhere in their childhood.
Everyone
that
knows that
character was developed
Yeah.
from feeling that they had to. And it could have been because the parent, some point in time in their life, made the kids compete against one another. You know, it's not conscious, but it happens. It's still happening today. I see it all the time. And so if we can get parents to awaken to this, if we can get siblings to awaken to this, you know, we can start mending the family structure. And then if you have children, be conscious of these things. Be careful what you say, because one thoughtless comment creates the path for them for the next 30 years.
So that's a really great takeaway for like any parents or any soon-to-be parents to take away from this in terms of fostering harmony in the family. Mm-hmm. But what can siblings, like if you're a sibling, and let's say like, you know, you're past that point, you're an adult now, how would you, from at least your own experience, how would you advise someone on what they can do to get closer to a sibling, to feel more oneness with a sibling?
My recommendation is to talk directly to each other. Now, what I have found in my life experience is that if there's still misunderstanding happening between siblings, it's because the parents are still the middlemen in the conversation, in the communication.
Oh, cut out the middleman.
Yeah.
Don't let anyone be your messenger.
The parents are technically still the middleman in the conversation, meaning you hear about your brother through your mom. Your brother hears about you through your dad. But you're not talking directly to each other. So you don't know how the parent is unconsciously twisting the reality or the truth around, right? And I see this all the time. If you can talk directly to each other and face each other, rather than allowing your parents to further be the middle ground, the middle person, the informant, if you will.
Yeah, play a game of telephone.
Yeah, stop playing and hear from the sibling directly, right? Get to the truth yourself and don't assume the truth even through your parent. Sometimes not especially your parent, which is very tragic, right? But it is what it is. Then you might have a chance. We have a cousin in Vietnam whose father, for his own personal gain, was pitting his daughters against each other by saying, this daughter is greedy, she won't support me, you're the only one, blah, blah, blah. So he was saying all these things to gain sympathy, right, and financial support. But that was far from the truth. But for 3 decades almost, they didn't sit down and talk directly to each other. They just heard through the dad. Or they, you know what I mean? Or they heard through relatives.
And they just assumed he was telling the truth.
They assumed he's telling the truth because why would he lie, right? Parents are not perfect beings. They're human, and they have agendas. They have motives. They have egos. They have needs. They're not emotionally healthy sometimes. You don't know what it is. But it wasn't until they started forming a group chat to communicate to each other directly. Hey, Dad says this. Is this true? He said that you will support him. And then the other dog was like, I just gave him money. That the lies started coming up. And now 30 years later, they're just finally mending their sibling relationship. So I would say, get to the truth, get to the source, speak directly with your heart, right? And speak to understand and be understood. And don't assume that that what you're hearing from your parents is impartial or fair or true. It may not be truth.
From my experience, in addition to the speaking directly, which is I totally absolutely agree with, and we even have our own experience of that.
Yeah.
Because our mom would say one thing to one sibling and one thing to another, to a point where we hadn't seen her for most of us hadn't seen her for a couple years. And we all collectively decided to see her, but we were determined to see her together because we didn't want to have this game of
he said, she said,
which had to happen for a really long time. Like, let's say for our brother would hear one thing for a long time, and obviously I totally understand why he would just believe what Mom said, because why would you think your parent would lie to you about these kinds of things? So he just took it at face value, and he would hear certain things about us or one of us and would just believe that. And so that would breed a lot of misunderstanding and resentments, and just so once we just decided, hey, we just gotta have our own chat, discuss everything together, meet her together, so we can all witness what she said all at once. And that cleared up so much misunderstanding. So I definitely agree with that. The other part is both just really listening to the other side and listening without judgment. Like, this idea that a lot of people grow up with, that you have to be like this sister and look like her, whatever it is. Like, just appreciate them for who they are and understand, like, everyone has their own situation,
their own journey.
Everyone has their own journey. So just because other people compare you, you don't compare you. And I know that's very hard for most people to achieve, but I know I was compared to my siblings at some point or another, but I was well, hey, yeah, she is beautiful, or yeah, she is great, she is creative. Just find joy, be happy for that person if you can. Because like Jade said, doesn't mean that they don't have their own suffering. Everyone has their own suffering. So don't think that that's unfortunately a very victim mentality to have, because you feel abandoned and you need to have some kind of acknowledgement. Just everybody is suffering. So understanding that, you'll be much more compassionate toward your siblings, and you'll want to know what's going on in their life. You'll be interested to know.
So we covered talking it out and listening to each other.
Listening and empathizing.
To add to that, I would say that you have to be mindful of perception. Everybody has a different perception. Everybody speaks a different language. You might be using the same word, but the word might carry a different value or weight to you. So just be mindful of that. And just to add to the oneness, try to always think from a oneness perspective. It will increase your unity. If you think of your sister's wins as your wins, and if you're happy for them, they'll be happy for you. If they're sad, it's your sadness, you take it on. That's how you can be one and united with your siblings.
Ooh, I like that. I can relate to that. When my sisters are sad, I really feel it.
I feel it.
I get a sickness in my bones, because I don't see it as separate. I don't see our struggles as separate. If they're suffering, I'm suffering too. And if they're happy, I'm overjoyed. Or if they're succeeding in something, I don't feel jealousy. I'm yeah, I get to ride that person's coattails. I'm really excited about that.
Oneness.
I'm really excited. I'm yeah, she's gonna be successful. She's gonna take care of me when I'm older.
I'll take care of you.
I don't feel any resentment or jealousy ever. I really don't. That's an emotion that I'm very glad to know is foreign to me. Yeah. I've never felt that in my life, and I hope I never do, because I think that spoils a lot of fun. I think that spoils a lot of things that could be really beautiful. And that probably stems from that competitiveness that may have unintentionally been fostered growing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with our approach and our sisterhood, it's spread to my other relationships. Like, I treat others as if they're my siblings, my sisters, my brothers. So I'm always happy for other people because it started from home, from you guys.
Yeah.
So I have that compassion, that love for other people.
So on the flip side of taking on feeling oneness, I feel like in our specific case, since we all either live together or literally are in the same compound together, I also believe in the oneness of the shared space too, on a very physical level. Not seeing as this is my space, this is my fiefdom right here, you can't use this thing, or being possessive or being weird, or like that's your house or that's your room. At least I can say personally, I don't see that here. I feel like we've lived a life where just nothing is our own. Because if you think of it that way, I think you'll feel very miserable, right? I mean, we're having dinner together, we do family events together, we just pop over to each other's houses all the time, and it's not like you have to, unless there's a very specific reason in advance, we just come over unannounced, right? Because we wouldn't have there's that feeling of oneness, which I know is very rare. We definitely live in a bubble. Not everyone is like that. I think would you say that's hard for most people to live like that? I know it's easy for us, but
only if there's an ego. Everything's hard with ego. I mean, if there's ego, it's hard, right? If you can put your attachment to your story aside as the story, as the official story, then you can listen to others and have compassion and understanding, and that's the route to sharing. When you can have compassion and understanding, then you can start to share. When you can share emotionally, mentally, that bleeds over to physically. You can share your physical space and your physical things, and so anything is possible. It just takes a shift of the mind, right? And it just really takes a desire. It's how strong is your desire to mend the sibling relationship. It shouldn't come from I have to, right? So I don't want anyone watching this and walking I have to do it. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. I don't want to. I don't. There's no value. That's up to you, right? But if you can see it as a personal challenge for yourself to reach profound greatness, you have nothing to lose except for pride. That's the only fee. That's the only cost you have to pay at the door. If you can pay the price of pride, you're stepping onto profound emotional, spiritual greatness and self-discovery if you can be the one that opens the door.
You've been quiet, Jay, so I'm going to kick it to you for the best part.
Great.
The greatest part of this.
Great. I can add to that.
Are you loving this?
Yeah, I'm loving it. Mostly because we didn't grow up together, and just the generosity and the love and the abundant thinking that you share with me is very evident. And so I have somehow maneuvered myself into your bubble as well.
Your bubble joined our bubble.
Yeah.
We made a super bubble.
And just your relationship as sisters is very important to me because I grew up close with my sisters, but it kind of we grew apart in a way where they also were taking me to parties. I was a lot younger than them, but they weren't consciously doing it. They were just because they couldn't get out of the house otherwise. Mm-hmm. So it was I was their ticket outside. So
they had to in order to get out.
Right.
Yeah.
And our relationship was different, where our parents didn't necessarily pin us against each other. They just did and said things that were just following rules of a religion, and not because they were, so they would say things like to be close to each other, but just the following of the blind following of the rules kind of made us separate and not want to open up to each other, which is why I've gravitated to you, because I feel like I can say anything to you. You're my sisters. You play a motherly role to me. Like, it's very important to me because I was missing it, and I didn't, and I wouldn't be able to. At this point, now I can see where I do want to get a little bit closer to my sisters and even my brother, and
We served a purpose for you today.
it's a very important purpose. Yeah, I'm always paying attention. This life is always talking to me. Our ability to communicate with each other and have
No middlemen.
have that closeness. Yeah, absolutely, no middleman. Because even if somebody doesn't intentionally filter things out inaccurately, it's still lost in translation.
Mm-hmm.
We're still playing a game of phone tag.
Right.
And it's a lot better to talk to somebody one-on-one, as difficult as it may be. Sometimes we may have something difficult to say, but that's why it's important to build ourselves up so that we can be courageous enough to confront one another and say whatever needs to be said, because more likely it's a misunderstanding.
Mm-hmm.
And those misunderstandings need to be cleared up so that we can move forward with purpose.
Right.
And so which brings me to, what you've done. You've been, very humble, and you've shared your stories growing up, which I've heard bits and pieces, and I keep getting more bits and pieces, and I'm piecing together as to why you've become the women that you've become. And so the why is important to me because it directs purpose. Like, why you...
That's his favorite topic in this podcast.
It's sure. So the drive that you have to bring us close, to build a tribe, to share that sisterly bond you have with your friends, with your family, with outsiders on many occasions. You share that not by talking about it, but you lead by example, which is the best way to teach, because nobody wants to just do what they're told. Like, I want to follow the lead of somebody who knows what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And like Jojo was saying, when we're young, we think the grown-ups have things figured out. And like somewhere along the way, we're like, wait, we're grown up? Like, who had this figured out? There's a lot of confusion.
I'm still figuring it out.
And so, but that's an illusion that grown-ups like to play. They like to pretend
like
they
know. But it's okay to not know. It's especially in this world, like, nobody knows what's going on. It's just like nobody knows even what's going on next door, let alone what's going on, in all over the world. And so these bonds, these closeness, the tribe that we create for each other is important to share. That's the part that I wanna illustrate. Like, it's not just because you're sisters. Like, I'm not your brother.
Yes, you are.
I'm
Yes,
your
you
brother,
are.
but
Yes, you are.
but it's like you adopted me. I was a grown man when you brought me in. And that bond is super important to me. I take it very seriously. I think about it. I ponder it, and I also share it. I put that forward out as much as I can as well, because it's what I want, and I know what I want, and I know how to get it. I just have to surround myself with people who encourage me and believe in me and uplift me, and they're not jealous, or they're happy for me, and that's real. You can't fake that. And so
We're really bad at faking things.
yeah, I really like that about. Oh, another thing that I like about, like, I'm the kind of person, my personality, where I don't really like to talk too much, so I feel comfortable where I can say something to one person and it kind of gets shared pretty accurately.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't embellish too much.
We're very similar in that aspect. We don't talk much, just give you a look and you understand.
Yeah, I really like that. Because I grew up in a Cuban household where embellishment is a thing.
Yeah.
It's like, all
Add the
stories-
spice. Add the spice.
all
add
the
spice.
stories are exaggerated, and as a kid, I remember like looking at my dad like, "That's not the way it went." So just having these accurate conversations, these open, straightforward,
Direct.
way of communicating is super valuable. And so I guess my question for you guys would be, now that you're grown up and you have some things figured out as far as building tribe, building relationship, creating value in the world, for yourselves, for others, what is it that keeps driving you to continue on this path? I'm gonna start with Jade.
This path of oneness, you mean? Or this path of...
Yeah, this
What's motivating us to keep going?
yeah, to keep going. Like, why isn't it enough?
Limitless.
Yeah, man.
Self-development. Greatness is, there's no limit. If I can get this far now, I wonder how much farther I can get. Limitless. Let's find out.
Great.
Where are we
Take
going,
me
where
with
we're
you.
going
Where we
next
going?
year.
Yeah.
It's always that, so what's
Yeah.
next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's this impulse.
Yeah. Buzz Lightyear to infinity and
Yeah,
beyond.
I don't believe it ever just ends there.
Yeah. Let's go to infinity.
Yeah. Maybe another question in addition to that is, when we look back on our story, what do we want to accomplish, like with all three of us together? Like, is there like one big thing? I know there's like, it's endless, right? But at least just off the top of your head, what big thing would you like to be like, yeah, we did that as sisters, specifically together?
That's hard to say. The story's not over yet.
I know it is.
That's
That's what I'm saying. Like, just
Thus
top,
far?
top of the head, just this far. That's not the end all be all. Just like whatever comes to mind first.
Yeah. This moment. Here and now. This moment.
Yeah, that's pretty great. It's pretty good.
I mean, we're siblings talking about siblinghood. I mean,
beautiful.
who does that?
Yeah.
It's because it's
Who does
fun.
that?
Because we want to.
Because we want to.
Because we can.
Yeah.
Because we're capable. Yeah. The only fare you have to pay, the only fee is pride. You pay that, you can accomplish a lot of
Easy.
things.
It's easy because it's a false sense of pride. It's
Yeah.
not real.
It's not real. First of all, it's not real, so you can have it.
Yeah.
It's not a real thing. It's not a thing.
Yeah. And the driving force should be the hunger to know the truth. Let the hunger for the truth drive you. Because until you hear it from your sibling's mouth, you really don't know what's true. Yeah. So go to the source, I say.
Always operate from a place of love.
Yeah.
Well, I think we got a lot of great wisdom and just a lot of love. I feel a lot of love right now, so I just want to in honor of our friend John Tran, this is for you. I want to thank you, my sisters, the me, you, us, for being here with me today. This meant a lot. I know we always can't even talk, I'm just overcome. But I know we always feel these feelings. We don't always get a chance to just talk about it, just openly, and like in a format where maybe someone hears this and can take something valuable away and apply it to their own life and live a better life. So I'm really honored and really thankful that you're both here. And Jay, you're cool.
I'm here too.
You're here too. And let's keep going.
Yeah.
Let's
Onward.
keep going. Onward.
Onward.
So thanks for listening to our story. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.